Welcome, everyone. I do apologize for my lateness. I had a work meeting go long. Never reschedule anything to 4 o'clock. All right, welcome to the Economic Matters Committee hearing. It is Wednesday, July 20th. Present here is myself, Alderman Brooks Schandelmeyer, the chair. I'm joined by my colleagues, Alderman Rob Savage and Alderman Dwan Gay. First on the list, can I get an approval of the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Up next, we have the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? And Alderman Gay, I believe you were you at the previous meeting?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I will move approval of the minutes.
Then I shall second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, up next is appointments and reappointments. First, the appointment of Roger Ward to the Recreation Advisory Board, AP 3422. Is Mr. Ward here? Mr. Ward, welcome. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for your interest in this position. Would you mind sharing a little on your background and what makes you want to serve our city in this role?
Sure. Pretty extensive sports background, I guess you could say. Played sports growing up. Played in college. Went on to coach 10 years in college football, baseball. Made it as far as Division I. Coaching the Ivy Leagues, Colgate University. Transitioned out of coaching, got into a sales job, worked with Adidas. Until I moved down here to Annapolis 20 years ago. Right away got involved with youth sports, volunteering, coached baseball, football, basketball. At the time I was, single, no kids. As got married, had kids of my own, continued coaching, volunteering, PTA, coached pretty much all over the region, familiar with the facilities, familiar with, how the programs go. Was approached about, signing up for this position and took a look at it, thought it might be a good fit, thought I might be able to, add some perspective, with my background, and here I am.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your interest in this position. Fun fact, you live in the same neighborhood as me.
Yes.
Landings.
How are you? Good to
So, colleagues, do either of you have a question for Mr. Ward? Alderman Savage.
Yeah, and thank you for your interest
You're welcome.
in serving the community. And it sounds like you have a variety, looking at your resume. You said Division I, but it looks like you also have some younger experience with younger athletes.
Yeah, I've been coaching, I guess, youth athletes pretty much since I got here. Even before I had my own kids, I volunteered, with PAL. I helped start the Eastport baseball team, which was sponsored by the city ultimately, and it was actually. It was spearheaded by Jess Packler, and she brought me in to kind of do the baseball end of it, but we worked together on it. It was a great, I thought it was a great organization because we basically were able to introduce baseball to a lot of kids that had never played before, didn't have access, didn't have the equipment, didn't have the transportation to do it. So we kind of developed a program that was based out of Eastport. We had volunteers around the neighborhood, around the city, donate money, donate goods. We hooked up with a place in DC that donated all the, equipment for the kids. We provided transportation. We set up a city schedule. We played at Truxton Park. We partnered with PAL. So we ended up having, I think, 6 teams, over 100 kids, at its height, and it was really a great program, and like I said, I've always, I volunteer. I coached at PAL. I coach at Salt River now. I coach PAL basketball. I do clinics. I just came from one. Sorry for my tire. I was at a Gonzaga football camp. Like literally just came off the road with my son. So yeah, I've been all over, the country really. coaching youth clinics and, coaching college ball and things like that. And certainly all over this county as well. I think I've probably been to every field in the area with a variety of sports.
Right. Good. Well, look, sounds like you have a lot to contribute to the board, so thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Are there any other questions? Do I have a motion to recommend Mr. Ward favorably?
So move.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, sir.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, up next is AP 3522, the appointment of Francesca King to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Good evening. Hillary Raftovich, Mayor's Office. Ms. King could not be here this evening. She had a tragedy in her family, but I said that I would come to speak on her behalf.
Excellent. Just pretty impressive resume. Again, I always like to hear a little bit about why is there interest in this position? Has she ever indicated that through cover letters or conversation?
So she was recruited by Emily Tomasini. I don't know if you know Emily. She's a very dynamic new member on the Recreation Advisory Board. So she's been reaching out to people that because they've had low attendance and some quorum issues on that board. So she's trying to help get those filled up. Ms. King has a lot of experience working with children as well. One of our goals for that board is to have people who are familiar with children's programs and familiar with diversity issues, and Ms. King also specializes in inclusion and diversity. So we thought she would be a good voice on this board.
Colleagues, any questions? Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Traditionally, I'd like to hear from them before recommendation, but since we do have our August break looming, and if they do have quorum issues, it might, I don't know, I can probably go either way, but it might not be a bad idea to make a recommendation.
I believe given the nature of her absence and just again the background, I'm comfortable. I believe given the nature of her absence, the August recess, and just the nature of her background, I'm personally comfortable with offering a favorable recommendation as well. Alderman Gay, do you have any thoughts on
I have
this?
no problem with approving it tonight. She lives in Ward 6, has a bachelor's degree in social inequities. Seems like an amazing fit for the Recreation Advisory Board.
Is that a favorable recommendation, Alderman?
That is.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Excellent. Well, congratulations to Ms. King. Up next, the reappointment of Craig Harrison to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could, I think the rest are reappointments. Should we carry them all together?
I have zero issue with that. Alderman Savage, are you willing to second his motion?
I'll second that, and can I have a comment on that?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Raftovich, is there anything you would like to bring up regarding any of these reappointments that we need to know?
No, they were all recommended for reappointment by their liaisons as well as their chairs. And many are very long-standing members on these boards.
Excellent. Well, I'd be prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
All right. I believe Alderman Gay, if we're following the proper quorum, I think Alderman Gay made the motion. I think you seconded. So I guess all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Congratulations to our appointees and reappointees.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All righty. Up next on the agenda is ID 5222, update from the Downtown Partnership. Mr. Evans, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me here today. I also have with me Matt Chappell, who's the chairman of our board for the Downtown Annapolis Partnership. joining us today.
Excellent.
Mic on, Mr. Evans. There we go.
So I think we should break this update down into two parts. The general how's business downtown.
Sure.
And then the big reason why we asked you to join us today, and I do apologize for an annoyed email at Monday. I had been stuck in an airport for 48 hours, so I probably shouldn't have been doing that, but then update us on the private security being brought in downtown. So if you could please start with sharing some business updates in the downtown area.
Sure.
So occupancy downtown right now is very well, especially in the Main Street, City Dock, and Maryland Avenue areas. It's probably stronger than it's been in a long time. Most of the vacancies downtown that we have right now are in the West Street Arts District corridor. And part of the success is, you know, you guys did the outdoor dining. There was marketing involved in just really trying to encourage people to come downtown. You guys waived parking cost for locals to come downtown during that time. And all of that was really beneficial to help keeping those businesses open. There's some changes that are happening now downtown and in the business community at large. Some of the things like we're getting all hit with heavy inflation, lack of employees to fill jobs, COVID relief programs are ending. And then the locals that came downtown, a lot of them enjoyed the free parking, which has gone away downtown on the residential streets. And so we're seeing a lot less traffic. And so with those other pressures, I don't know how that's going to play out downtown over the next couple of years as we go through some of these large capital projects. I encourage the council to consider marketing money towards helping educate locals where to park downtown and why it's important to come down and visit your local businesses so we don't end up kind of like some other commercial areas that are struggling, and we can keep a strong downtown. The Downtown Partnership and the Annapolis Arts District have been promoting a grant project by the state called Project Restore. If you're not familiar with that, if there's a vacant property in the state that's been vacant for 6 months, business can apply for a grant for $30,000 in rent relief for the first year. They can also apply for a rebate on their sales tax up to $250,000 to be used towards operating expenses to make it easier for a new business to open up in a vacant space.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Gay?
does the vacant space have to be dilapidated or?
No,
Okay.
just has to be vacant for 6 months.
And would that apply to, for example, I'm asking because I have a, in my ward, kind of like it was like a neighborhood grocery or whatever, that is now vacant. And there's definitely interest in it, but they had some issues. So I think maybe that could be something that would be great for them to look into. I'll definitely pass that along.
That would definitely be a project that'd be worthwhile for them to look at that grant opportunity. They don't even have to have a signed lease. They just have to have a letter of intent.
Okay.
So you can actually do a letter of intent saying that you're signing a lease contingent upon certain things happen, including receiving that grant. Just to give you an idea, with the two organizations of the Arts District and Downtown Annapolis Partnership, we've been marketing it towards artists and towards entrepreneurs and commercial real estate agents in the local area. And we've had over 1,000 people look at additional information about opening a business. And I'm aware of a couple people that have applied for this grant to help bring new business to downtown and surrounding areas. Some things are happening downtown and in the area. Just encourage you, since you guys are going on recess, tax-free week is August 14th through the 20th. So if during this time period that any clothing or apparel item that's $100 or less, clothing or shoes, is tax-free, and the first $40 towards a backpack is tax-free during that week. We would encourage people to shop local during that time. The Downtown Annapolis Partnership helped the city purchase the new flower baskets that you see downtown this year. Those flower baskets hold 4 gallons of water. In the past, those flower baskets had to be watered up to 7 days a week. So far, they've only had to be watered 1 day a week. So you can imagine the labor savings the city's going to have on that, environmental impact of gas and vehicles downtown and everything. So that's going to be a huge payoff down the road. And I know the last year's budget cycle put money towards that. So thank you guys very much for your support on that. And we were happy to step in and help out with that project. Also, with your support, we did the Annapolis Upbringing Festival. We had our first one down on City Dock this June, and we had a couple of historic boats. We had about 4,000 people on both the Pride and I'm blank on the other ship that was here. We also christened the
Sultana?
we also christened a ship down here, and we had activities for the kids where they can make pirate hats at no charge. We did a fundraiser with the Chesapeake Children's Museum where they could make model boats. And even though the weather was pretty rough that weekend, it was great to know that we had, just even between 2 of the 6 boats that I was able to get counts on, that we had, it was 8,000 people between the 2 boats. I'm meeting next week with city staff about doing this event again next year and hopefully bringing additional historic boats and activities to City Dock. The Annapolis Arts District started a mural in partnership with both the Anne Arundel County government and the Arts Council on Arundel Center on Calvert Street. It's going to be a 4-story mural as you pull into God's Court Garage. I call it the Great White Wall, that's immediately to your left. This mural is going to reflect all the best parts of Anne Arundel County. And so it's going to reflect the people of Anne Arundel County. You'll see people of all ethnic backgrounds, all ages, different trades. You'll see landscaping of all over the county, from the historic buildings of Annapolis to the modern buildings of BWI to the water. You'll also see that the mural is going to be interactive. So unlike most public art, which is pretty to look at, this mural is going to have 2 different components to it that's going to make it really unique for Annapolis. The first interactive piece is going to have a giant fishing rod that you can stand next to it and pretend like you're holding when you take a picture of it. Similar to, a lot of you guys have seen probably the Harriet Tubman Memorial on the Eastern Shore. We can pretend to hold Harriet Tubman's hand. The second piece, it's going to use AI technology, and we're going to make it so that you'll be able to scan a QR code and then the mural and watch the mural come to life on your phone. So that you'll be wanting to hang out and be interactive with the art piece. So I think it's going to be an interesting piece. The 2 artists is Commissel Brown and Cindy Fletcher Holden that are working together on this mural. I like the fact that the 2 have chosen to work together. We did a call for artists and had 39 artists apply. They were the top 2 contenders. They come from different ethnic backgrounds. One's male, one's female, one's young, one's older. And I really think that each of their perspectives being melded together is going to really create something that the city would be proud to have there at that garage. The next thing the Downtown Partnership has done is they've received a grant for $93,000. 40% of that money is going to go to Wiseman Park to rehab it. That is the little pocket park next to the visitor center. So if you had the visits to Wiseman Park, it's a little pocket park next to the visitor center. It's right next to the Christian Science reading room.
Yes.
Yes.
And Alexis is there Christmas time.
Yeah. So we're going to clean that park up, refresh it. We met with the city before applying for the grant with some ideas, and that was one of the projects that they picked. So we're going to clean it up, add some public art to it, maybe some lighting, some public art, some new park benches. The second part of it is for the community ambassadors that you want to talk about later. So we'll, that's the end of my report at this time, and opening up for any questions you guys have.
Excellent. So I have one quick question on the first part regarding the park cleanup, new park benches. Can we avoid those park benches that have that inconvenient little armrest in the center, which is basically used as a disencouraging design for loitering, I suppose?
We will take that under advisement as one of the ideas. We have not come up with any final plans, and anything we do will have to go before HPC and Parks and Recs. But we're going to meet with some of the public around there too for their ideas, but we haven't put anything in concrete one way or the other.
Okay. I would very much be upset if one of those was put in, because the purpose is to essentially just keep people moving in a way and from avoiding it. It's to discourage those kinds of people, i.e. the unhoused. So Are there any further questions for Mr. Evans
I have a question.
on the first part of the
I'm
report?
sorry, go ahead. Alderman Savage?
Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just if you had any other comments or I guess insights about parking in light of not having the garage down there, do you have any further? I know you had commented on just making sure that we allocate money to get people downtown, but have you any observations based on what you've seen?
I mean, I received a lot of feedback on parking from, you can go out front here and not see any signage of where to park, even though the garage has come down. So there really is no marketing, but really, even with the garage down, we're seeing that there's a lot of open parking spaces downtown, which means that we're not having the traffic that we typically do in the summertime. So we're not getting the message out that we're open and that there's easy parking, that there's easy shuttles, that there's, new electric bikes. And I think we need to get that message out stronger and more consistently.
Are the empty spots you're referring to, or is that in the surface lot over by City Dock? Is this empty
I would say
street
City
parking?
Dock, on-street parking, if you went up any of the residential streets. So I think all over downtown, you're going to see that there's more available parking than there ever was before.
Is that due to alternative methods being given and more emphasis on parking in the other garages and the proliferation of the mobility devices such as the bikes and the scooters and other things, or people choosing to get downtown alternative ways like myself? I no longer really drive down here that often. I come downtown through my bike. So I think empty spots is auto-centric ways of thinking.
Well, I spent the last 2 hours at the Market House, who closed at 4 o'clock today. And I didn't see one person using the new bicycles.
If I could just continue to add some questions that it's important to know, but I think it's an important point from the chair. And maybe this is also a question for the Plan and Zoning Director, as far as if we have any of the economic indicators, because spots alone don't necessarily indicate that people aren't visiting downtown. But if we are seeing economic impact from the businesses that are saying less customers, if they're getting a lot of complaints, that'll help us really be able to refine exactly what we might need to do to increase
I think the
traffic.
weekend tourist visitor comes from out of town and still coming. I think it's that local person who lives off Forest Drive or Edgewater or Arnold, maybe choosing some other locations.
Well, if you get any additional information, insight about that, it'd be useful for us to look at.
One anecdotal, I know that.
Could you make sure you're on the mic?
Sorry. One single data point, Linda, who owns Shades on the Bay, her revenue was down $20,000 the last 2 months. So that's $40,000 in revenue, which is a lot for that place. And she attributes it to the garage. Now, that's, one data point that could or could not be, could be other factors, heat, who knows, but that's a data point.
Could you also state your name?
Matt Schatzel, chairman of the board of the partnership.
Address for the record? Okay, just name, that's fine.
Yeah.
Director, is it Laplace? I still haven't learned how to say your name correctly, but if you could come up for a minute, Mr. Chair, if it's okay. I'd just like to ask him about economic development. If you just state your name for the record.
Sure, Michael Laplace, Planning and Zoning. My information would be more anecdotal, but I come downtown really every day. I'm coming to the office and I come back in the evening. So I can tell you, I ride the shuttle a lot, the free shuttle, and I'm very impressed with the rapport that's been building with the drivers and the folks that are coming and use the shuttle. Not that the shuttle's full all the time. It seems to be, it's super busy early in the morning. Some of that is jury duty crowds, but I'm noticing that visitors seem to really be enjoying the shuttle, and the drivers are very friendly, and they're giving a lot of information, like which way to walk to the Naval Academy, where City Dock, something like that. Because a lot get off at Main Street, which is the stop that I get off from my office. So I think that's kind of building. The other observation I was going to make coming downtown a lot in the day and even the evening is I think Main Street is very hard to park on. I think I don't see a lot, personally, I haven't found spaces on Main Street, but I guess maybe some of the side streets or the lots, the City Dock lot. That's just been my observation. We haven't done any scientific analysis. I had an idea when you were talking earlier, maybe one of the summer interns could do an analysis or maybe do surveys, or, that might be a good use of one of the city interns this summer.
Yeah, and does that fall under Mr. Rice's, our economic, what's his title, economic
Development coordinator.
Is that something that he would look at as far as taking a deeper dive as far as economic impacts?
I think so, yeah. Like, for instance, I think we could ask for an intern to work with Stephen closely on that, because you're right. I mean, we should find out what's working and what isn't, and what's the overall impact.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Mr. Evans. I don't want to dismiss it at all, but I do think we need a complete picture. Because, I mean, it's been interesting, because I've just, anecdotally on my own, I've been coming down probably more frequently than I usually do. And for the council meetings, not having a garage. So it's been interesting trying to find parking. It hasn't been as difficult as I anticipated,
Right.
which is good. But in any case, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Gay?
Thank you very much. Just quickly, the interns are set to be here next week. We're asking each department to come up with jobs for at least 2 to 3 interns per department. So that'd be a great use of one of the interns. I had 2 quick, just following up on the parking thing. I watched the transportation board meeting last night, I think it was, and one of the things that they emphasized was the need to have the hours extended for the shuttles, because it's obviously catered to city employees right now, and so we're shutting off so early that even if people wanted to come downtown and use the shuttle, there's really no opportunity for them to do so in the evening hours in particular.
I believe we extended it to midnight on Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay. I'll have to follow.
Help. Yeah, I believe we extended that very recently. Friend of mine's involved with the ghost tours, and that was something she was working on and are chomping at the bit for. And yeah, I believe they've extended out to midnight on the weekends.
Okay. That'd be great. And I'm also just interested in the Upper West Street area, which you mentioned had a number of vacancies, and it doesn't appear that how can we increase foot traffic there? I just seen, Dangerously Delicious leave, and there was a store there before that left. I mean, Lighthouse Bistro has been good. They've been there for a while. But outside of that, I'm noticing a lot of restaurants having trouble staying there. So how can we increase foot traffic?
So I'm going to put a little bit of it on planning and zoning. And luckily, we got somebody who's brand new on planning and zoning, so you can hear it for the first time from me.
Check your mic.
There you go. And really, to encourage a walkable city, I think your commercial property that abuts a sidewalk needs to be retail, restaurant, or service oriented. And that makes people feel safe and engaged to continue walking in an area. So when you look at West Street, the first block is mostly that. But when you get to the second block, it's mostly closed off office buildings that mean there's no eyes on the street, because there's nothing active on the first floor approaching the sidewalk. So people will get to that area at 60 West Street and 80 West Street, and they will turn around and head back downtown. You'll see that on Main Street as you get closer to the top of Main Street. You got that red brick building with the white columns, and then you got some other lobby office there. And you'll see that there's high turnover at the top of Main Street on the other side. As soon as people see that the shop's end, they turn around and head back downtown if they started down by the water. Maryland Avenue has the issue because of Francis Street is not active with any retail restaurant for the most part. So people turn around before they discover the beautiful Maryland Avenue shopping district. So even though we have one big commercial district, by allowing first floor not to be retail, service, or restaurant, we've created these dead zones that are lobbyists or government buildings, that people don't feel the need to keep on walking because they think that area of foot traffic that would interest them has ended.
That's interesting. I would like to, I don't know, I guess it can't be fixed, but it'd be interesting to see if it could. I know Curate also is fairly new, and I hope they're doing well. It's a nice restaurant, but again, no foot traffic right there. And the place that is next to it, they've been trying to lease that site for months, where Cindy Lou's boutique used to be. Yeah, so.
Right, but so if you think about on that side, Level is the last restaurant or service, and then you have, the church and the gas station, so you have a lot of dead zone between them and the first block. So it discourages people. You get further down West Street, you got the commercial area ends, you put in townhouses, and then it restarts again. But as soon as people see the residential area, they go, oh, the commercial area must have ended, and then you have where India's used to be that's been vacant, for 3 years.
I'm wondering actually, and I'll just wrap here because I know we got a lot on the agenda, but if I think there's planned development where the gas station used to be, I'm curious if we forbid residential planned development there, as I'm agreeing with you that it should probably be some sort of commercial.
So that area, yes, so that area is zoned MX and which is mixed use. So most areas that have MX zoning, it says, you're going to be 2 or 3 things. You're either going to be a retail service, you're going to be an office, or you'll be residential. So you can live and work in the same kind of area. In Annapolis, we changed it, says pick one of the 3, and we don't care which it is. So if the market is strong for housing, it becomes housing. If it's strong for office, it becomes office, but it's not mixed use as originally intended and originally written in the city code. So comp plan is up now, so.
Yeah, and I'd like to jump in there because I'm pretty optimistic about, I think, where West Street's going. There are gaps in the flow that draws foot traffic through, certainly. I don't think it's so much the non-retail uses, but I do agree with you that first floor storefronts should be retail or service oriented. It should be driving customer traffic. That's what it's all about. Having said that, I think the focus should be on the undeveloped sites. Like you said, there's that gas station that's no longer a gas station. Across the street, there's the old automobile dealership next to Park Place. And my department has been reaching out to the ownership of those properties and very aggressively been trying to get them to think about what's the highest and best use of those sites. And I couldn't agree with you more. We should be doing mixed use, because you not only want those commercial activity generators on the first floor, but you want customers upstairs, and you want customers living and being able to walk to businesses. We can't depend just on tourists and visitors. We have to have built-in residential customer base. So I think West Street's evolving, but we're really taking a proactive stance of looking at how to invigorate it, because there are some weak links along that stretch.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and to that, I'm glad to hear you say that, and in particular with the gas station, that property, and also we have a couple other corner lots in the city that are up for sale. But just again, real quick on that point, I do, I have legislation I'm working on with staff and law office, and would love to send it to you when I have a draft that's ready. But basically, it'd be preventing gas stations from coming in and in the city, basically taking them out of our zoning code, because I feel like we're going to need more fossil fuel. And I think if we can move in the direction of having, especially corner lots seem to be like they'd serve very well for mixed use in communities, but I would love to work with you on that.
That sounds great. And as you know, I'm sure you know that particularly on a street like West Street was traditionally an entrance into the city. And it was those prime spots were picked up in the teens and the 1920s for service centers. And once it goes into a service center use, it stays that way for a long time, a lot of those sites. So we have a lot of opportunities, I think.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Alderman Savage, because a constituent emailed me about that as well. And I thought that was just a fantastic idea. And the evidence that he presented, when I read it, I was just like, wow, he's absolutely right. There is almost no need for us to allow the development of gas stations in the city of Annapolis any longer. And in particular, in Ward 6, there have been, at least since I've been in office, 4 attempts to have a gas station on the corner of Forest and Tyler Ave.
Yeah, that's the one.
And so I would totally be in support of that legislation, and even current ones. There have to be rules and regulations for the sale of and the use of. I don't think they should. If you sell the property, maybe we just say, okay, it has to be changed to something else. You can no longer have a gas station there. But yeah, I totally agree.
And maybe what we do is not only we look at use and design. I think design's very important because we might decide that there's areas of the city that are appropriate to have service stations, but how do they function? Where should they be, and what do they look like? And I think there's always a design solution to any challenge. I think, we could have really high standards. I always think of that, this isn't a great example, but it always caught my eye in Arlington. If you're familiar with that church that has an Exxon station below it in Roslyn, talk about mixed juice. I don't know how that came about, but it is Roslyn, so,
Well,
but it's kind of interesting.
Maybe if they're bicycle service stations or EV or
Well,
something.
multimodal, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to think differently now.
Silver Spring actually, they have I think the only all electric gas station in the state.
Yeah.
And they did a huge piece on it on 60 Minutes or something like that. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I think design is so important because if we put in regulations where the buildings are up to the street and the access from the automobiles are to the rear and it's really striking architecture, I look at those old pictures of the waterfront and that famous sort of neo-colonial gas station that was right at the Circle by City Dock. I get that nobody that they wanted to get the gas station out of that heart of the City Dock, but it was a really attractive building. Maybe that building could have been reimagined in a different use. So I think design is a good way to think about this.
Yeah.
So as much as I love nerding out on walkability and urban design and land use, very much so. Let's now get to the ambassadors, as it was phrased. So I'm going to be honest, I was caught a bit flat-footed on this, as many on the council were, with how the Capital Gazette covered the story, and that was the first time I learned about it. I don't like not knowing what's going on. I think that hiring private security can be problematic unless there's an eye kept on things. So if you could fill us in on what the goal of this is, and then I'm sure I have questions on that front, as do my colleagues, so I'd like to hear.
Absolutely. So back at the beginning of the year, there's a grant available through the state for safety-related issues that business organizations could apply for. And so we met with city staff and the mayor's office and the police department, economic development, public works. I'm sure I'm probably missing some. And we went through the grant possibilities of what we could apply for. And, most of them were things that have been tried at other jurisdictions and it seemed to work, whether it's repairing an area, whether it's putting up a fencing, whether it's putting up a light, whether it's putting up cameras, whether it's making a space more active, if it's putting eyes on the street. And after, I think we had 2 group meetings with different staff people. And the idea that came up at the end is that we had a lot of complaints about Wiseman Park not being active and some people not feeling comfortable in that area, and that we should have eyes on the street downtown. So we applied to have ambassador program down there, which would be like a neighborhood watch. These are not armed people, they're not police, they're not security in the sense that they're going to be making any arrest or tackling any individual because he's walking with a cup. They're not going to be forcing people out of town that they don't like. They're not my private security guards. But they will call the police if they see a problem. They will give directions to somebody who is coming into town. They'll engage people. If somebody needs help, they can refer them to the correct persons. The idea is to make everyone feel welcome downtown. The headline that the Capitol used is different from what the body of the letter or the body of the story said. but they're not going to be walking around in security uniforms. They're not going to be carrying clubs, guns, or anything. They're going to come up and say, "Hi, how are you? What brings you to town? Do you need directions? Here's the entrance to the Naval Academy. Here's where the parking garage is. Here's how you rent a bike." They will, if they see a missing brick downtown on a sidewalk that someone could trip over, they can report it on the city's website. If they see a street light that's out, they can report that. But their goal is not to harass. Their goal is to make everyone feel welcome.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Just before I know we have a work session scheduled on this for 2 weeks out. How much do you want us to get into it now versus, I'm happy to wait because I know we have a lot of other stuff and you have a deadline, right?
Yeah. Well, I can never. So if you have deeper questions that you can wait or need like a little more weighing in on for the work session, that's okay. Because the full-time job, am very rarely able to be in present, although I am able to tune into those. I just have a couple of questions or clarification points if my colleagues would indulge me. And if you guys have a couple of quick things that can be answered in a timely way, I'd welcome the comments and conversation.
Right.
I'd like to provide a little context before or after too, if I could.
Absolutely.
I could do it right now. I thought what the gentleman said, that the questions asked to the bus driver, that's exactly where's the nearest place to crab working. These are going to be very friendly to just make the town look, and feel, which it is, more friendly, and eyes on the street, help strollers across the crosswalk. I mean, really ambassadors. We're not looking for any kind of security or anything like that. We're not going to engage people that we think are, maybe disruptive or drunk or whatever. We're going to call somebody or just, it's just having a presence down there. And much like the business improvement districts in DC, we have the yellow windbreakers at DuPont Circle, the red windbreakers at Farragut. They're it's a couple folks at some of the heavy times on Saturday afternoon, Friday afternoon. So they're not patrolling. They're not, I think just their host is what they're going to be, maitre d's, whatever you want to call them. So that's how we envision it, is just to be, people have questions. There's no one to ask. We don't have an information desk downtown like they have at the mall. We don't have one, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the desire to bring ambassadors in and eyes on the street. It's the Jane Jacobs principle for reducing crime and increasing activity in a city, is to bring more people out and enjoying the public weather. I'll get into Jane Jacobs in one of our many conversations on land use at some council meeting. But, and I do appreciate that. Like a recent incident that happened to my wife while downtown is she had some mulch thrown at her by a couple of kids, same group of little kids that just got nothing to do, and so they get into trouble. But just for a couple clarification points for me, they will not be carrying any weapons of a kind, no club, no mace, no zip ties, no cuffs.
Correct.
That is correct. No cuffs, no zip ties. All right. Second, you said they wouldn't be wearing uniforms of any kind, so they'd just be like.
Security uniforms. They're going to have some type of probably polo shirt that just says, Annapolis ambassadors or something, or ask me if you have a question or something along those lines. But it's not going to look police-like.
Okay. It's not going to look anything police-like or security-like, but they'll have some type of identifying shirt on that they're Annapolis ambassadors.
I like that. So you did say if they see anything, they will call the police. Are there guidelines for what situations they would call the police on? Is it up to their own discretion? Cop calling can be you. I mean, look, there isn't a thing. If it's on their own discretion, like, it is what it is. And I mean, we have random citizens that would probably do the same thing too. And I don't know how to tackle this issue wildly. But as we all know, calling the cops is can be used as a threat towards minorities especially. So I don't know. Is there any training on this front? Is it like, if you see this incident, you can call the cops, and if you just see somebody loitering, like, mind your business?
It's not. So loitering is not an issue for calling the police. I mean, how do you define who's loitering and who's not? But if somebody is riding the bicycle down the street and bopping people over the back of the head, they're going to call the police. Every event that happens downtown is required to have security, so it's not anything new. And we had people like this, who've done the first Sunday Arts Festivals, the Dinner Under the Stars. The Upbringing Festival, all the different events downtown have private security that probably mostly act as ambassadors versus true security. And we really haven't had a history of problems. I mean, I've been doing events downtown for 21 years now, and no one's ever called me out for beating anybody up or arresting anybody. Or that's not what we do. The idea is to make people feel comfortable to be in the space. We feel that when you put an active space, that good people will want to hang out, and bad people will naturally weed themselves out. You're not going to do anything bad or illegal 9 times out of 10 if you're in a group of people that are enjoying a space.
It's again, the eyes on the street. You get your grandma hanging out outside. You're not going to act like an idiot in front of your grandma for the most part.
Exactly.
So that has calmed a lot of my concerns. Colleagues, do you have any questions for Mr. Evans? Alderman Gay?
Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear the that it won't be, private security or whatever as it was originally presented to us, because I really was worried about some of the impacts it could have on just people going downtown, etc. I do share and it's a very small concern. There should be some sort of bias training, or they should undergo some sort of de-escalation training or whatever. I just feel in general, when you're putting people in a position, in a role where they'll be interacting with a number of residents and visitors and tourists and just personalities alike, they should have some sort of training just to be prepared for what could go wrong. I'm also wondering, will we be liable if there were any incidents? Would the city be responsible for? Are they being employed by the city or?
No, they're being, contract is being issued by the Downtown Annapolis Partnership. The company is insured and will be listing both the city and Downtown Annapolis Partnership as additional insured.
Okay, perfect. That's great. And the uniform, you said just regular polo? Okay, perfect. So nothing. I'll save the other questions for our work session, but I really am relieved to hear that they won't be private security, because I've seen some of these interactions, at the bars, etc., and they escalate very quickly. And I think a lot of times when people are like, oh, we're private security, they go above and beyond in how they handle or, engage with maybe a drunk customer or somebody just having an issue. And so I was worried about that, but I'm happy. And I hope this helps the businesses. I really do.
That's our goal. We don't even, from the business community, we don't like police cars down there. So, because that just sends another message, right? And then we met with the folks already. De-escalate was the word they brought up right away. And these folks are not going to be down there after hours. This is not going to be when the bar's let out. They already have bouncers and the police are down there. This is pretty much daytime till dusk, right? Really, when there's strollers and everybody down there, that's when they're going to be down there. So we're not digging in at midnight down there at all. So that's for you all to address.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I certainly do see a value to ambassador program. I've seen it in other cities, and it's been helpful. But I still have concerns about the safety part of it. And so I think in order for the work session to go smoothly and perhaps head off some concerns, I have a couple of suggestions. I would like to see if you could send us the grant application, give us a summary of training that you're going to be requiring the ambassadors to go through, and anything else you think that might be relevant. And I guess some of this is going to be in the grant application as far as the scope of responsibility. But I think those two things in particular, and maybe even, maybe even a scenario in terms of what their general operating procedure is going to be if they see an issue, how it's going to be handled. Because I think those things, because I basically, what I'm getting at is, I've seen this work, but if it doesn't work, we are going to be the first ones to get complaints from our constituents.
Right.
And so we need to have some assurances in writing for the work session, I think, to help that we can point to say, look, we have commitments from, and if that's in the grant application, great. But just so we can show and get that on the record, I think would be good.
Absolutely. And, we're open to, if something doesn't go right, to modify programs. Sometimes things, that people don't dream of happen, and then you got to sit there and look back on how to modify things. But, we have had, like I said, private security downtown before with every special event. This is going to be a toned down version of that. We've had just ambassadors who greet guests before the visitor center for several years before COVID. Used to have people on the street who just walked around wearing big buttons and a polo shirt that said, if you have a question, ask me, and would hand out, maps, walking maps of downtown and give people directions of, it's amazing how many people leave God's garage and get downtown and can't find their way back, because it's hidden behind an alleyway, and they get back to the street and it looks completely different when you enter it from the opposite way. So I think it's going to work out well. But I'd be happy to send you guys that information in advance.
And I'll say that I think one thing we'll gain out of this is not on the safety security. It is the trash cans overflowing at noon outside Cohen's. I mean, and I don't know in the city, we talked about how we're going to communicate that. Won't solve it in that night, but then a week later, we might be able to figure out a way to get them emptied. Things like that. The Veterans Parade that will come up in November last year, the trash cans, you couldn't stand aside because of trash cans. There's things like that I think we'll learn from the program by having eyes on there, data for you.
And I do like the idea, and I really want to thank my colleague for bringing up the conflict resolution, because I think whether or not, hopefully they won't have to have that problem, but I think they need to be able to know how to handle the situation if it comes up. But the idea kind of makes me wonder, maybe we need to do something similar for an environmental aspect. Have some environmental ambassadors or watchdogs that we can call in and report things going on. Anyway, thank you. I look forward to seeing that information.
Thank you. I need to compliment Alderman Gay on his shoe attire. I'm sorry? Your shoe attire.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you giving us the updates, both on just the general business climate, along with calming some of our concerns on the community ambassadors. As you can probably imagine, we got a lot of, when that Capital Gazette story dropped, we got a lot of calls and emails from folks who were going, do you know what's happening? And I was like, this is the first I've literally heard about it, so I appreciate you coming in, filling us in, and headlines can be sensationalized. It's all good.
Apologize.
Thank you.
All good. Thanks, folks. All right, so before we move on to legislation in regards to committee discussion, I know this is not on the agenda, but it's a quick thing, and it's not going to take real time. I forwarded to you all a briefing from Stephen Rice to talk about just kind of the progress on economic development here in the city. And hopefully he will have his, his kid will be fully vaccinated by September, and he'll be able to come in person again. And yeah. All right. Now to legislation 0622, medical cannabis dispensaries. Alderman Gay.
I think we're pretty good on this. We discussed in great detail at the Rules and City Government Committee meeting. They have submitted an amendment to remove the school buffer requirements. And that's the only new amendment, I believe. I've been, obviously talking. Oh, Alderman Savage, I do see you have some amendments here. I overlooked that. I'm sorry. That's actually my first time seeing those. If you'd like to discuss Amendments 6 and 7.
Let's work our way down through the amendments. Okay. And
Mr. Could we start with some of the staff reports if we have questions?
Yeah, certainly. Alderman Gay, if you're done your pitch, you did give a pretty good presentation on this in the Rules and City Government Committee hearing, which I was part of. We're all familiar with this issue. Director LaPlace, if you could come forward for any staff report questions.
Thank you. Just briefly looking back on what's happened to date, and I was reviewing the history of it since it started before I was in Annapolis, but from what I understand, I guess the original concept was to to determine where dispensaries would be allowed within the city. The idea originally was, I guess there was a concept of having them no closer than 2,000 feet apart, one from the other. And then the planning board took a look at that and said, well, that effectively prohibits them from anywhere in the city. That wasn't workable. And I think at the time there was also going to be a 1,000-foot minimum distance from schools.
Yep.
Same thing, same effect. So the planning commission came back and recommended to the city council to consider 1,500 foot, 1,500 foot minimum distance radius around a dispensary. And of course, we have an existing one right outside the city in the county, which is very close to Ward 3. So that sort of kicks off where you're measuring things from. And then the idea would be to bring down the minimum distance requirement from a school, public and private school, to 750 feet. So that was what the planning commission was looking at and reacting to. And then since then, there's been discussions and work by various aspects of the government here. And it was thought that, the planning commission was proposing a 1,000 foot radius. And then now I think we're at, after these discussions in different groups, we're at 1,500.
Yeah, I think now
That's where we are.
trying to see if we're going to keep the buffers. We moved from 1,000 to 750.
Correct.
For the school buffer.
No, we removed the school buffer completely according.
So that went away. I wasn't aware of that. So, okay. So I think we were talking about, and we were asking to do some mapping exercises to see what 1,500 foot radius minimum around a dispensary would do. Yeah. And it certainly addressed the concern of alderwomen from the Ward 3 that was really was really concerned about the impact on Ward 3 since there's already one right nearby. And that effectively would limit another one, would keep another dispensary out of Ward 3, which is so close to the existing one. So I think she was comfortable, as I recall in the report she gave out, 1,500 worked for Ward 3.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Alderman Savage.
So I did have some other questions about, and just to clarify, as introduced, it has 2-mile radius from any licensed dispensary, and then it has 1,000 feet from a school.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'm confusing things.
As introduced. I know there are a lot
It
of
was 2
amendments.
miles, and then when the planning commission recommended 1 mile, and now we're at 1.5. I apologize
And
for
they
the
also
confusion.
recommended lowering the 1,000 feet for the school buffer down to 750.
750.
But before I get to that, I have a question about some staff comments. And I know this was, I think, drafted before you joined us, but so on. Oops.
Yeah, this was reported out to the council in May.
Yeah, and so it's stated that, and this is a staff report based on that 2,000/1,000 feet. So as described in Chapter 3, Land Use and Economic Development in the comp plan, states that growth will be directed primarily to 4 opportunity areas, which were selected due to their ability to accommodate change. It says portions of 3 of these opportunity areas would be permitted locations for dispensary based on the 1 mile and 750 foot buffers. Okay, so that's based on the 1 mile, 750 foot buffer in attachment 3. But I guess my question is would that still stand true for the one proposed amendment from Alderwoman Pindell Charles? That would be the 1.5 mile and 1,000 foot buffer.
Yes, that we were asked to take a look at that, and it seems like the spirit of it will still be in place. We'll still be able to accommodate enough areas where the dispensaries would be available, areas where it could happen.
And to be crystal clear, I am completely against the amendment 5. It's ridiculous. To a mile and a half between each dispensary would ruin the bill. And I've talked to some of the co-sponsors, and I'm not sure they understood what they were signing on to. And so I think we'll be able to have that discussion this Monday. But that was concerning to me.
Yeah, and I do have a map. I asked, because I couldn't find one for the 1.5 mile, but I did ask, and apparently staff had already created one. Mm-hmm. And it does show, it would exclude a portion versus the 1 mile. It would exclude a portion of West Street, and I'll have to send this out to Ms. Green here to get posted into the system. But for my colleagues' sake, it does exclude the little portion of West Street, and then it would exclude a portion of Ward, I think that's Alderwoman Finlayson. So it would exclude a portion here off of Forest Drive. So there are at least two areas. I'm not sure if either of those are opportunity areas, probably West Street. But there is a bit of a difference. Not much for the rest of the city, because I think this map is based on the 750-foot school buffer. But there is a bit of an impact.
Ask a quick question to Kia. I'm seeing on the form here, amendments introduced by Tyranny and Savage, but I'm not seeing those in Granicus at all.
It's
Because they say 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm not seeing that.
I'll walk you through. One of mine's redundant. The other,
Okay.
I can explain it.
Yeah, it looks like the numbering is a little off as well.
yeah.
With Alderman Savage's, in the system, it says 6 and 7, but when I pull it up, it says 5 and 6.
Let me refresh.
Ms. Green, would you mind printing out the physical copies for the other committee members of the Savage Amendments and the Tyranny Amendments? Thank you. Just so everybody has it in front and easy to find. All right, so let's go down the amendments here, and I think the good starting point would be the amendment that came out of the Rules and City Government Committee. It's labeled Amendment 1. That said, other amendments were introed, so we're just going to call it, not going to address its number, and just call it the Rules and City Government Amendment. And Amendment 1 would, on page 3, strike lines 42 and 43 of the original bill draft.
Mr. Chair, can I ask another, question about the Planning Commission findings?
Yes.
For the director.
I apologize, Alderman Savage, go ahead.
Sorry, I was looking up my notes. Most of the recommendation from the Planning Commission I understand, but they mention on the second page about the commission further suggests the city council study means of buffering dispensaries from adjoining residential properties. Two potential means of buffering are excluding the MX zone and imposing a definite distance between dispensaries and residential properties. Did you have any comments on that in particular? I'm personally not really, I don't quite see a need for the, there are setbacks anyway, typically
Right.
between uses, right? So I don't know if this would be needed.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't part of that discussion, but my guess is that they were just trying to show some sensitivity to any adjoining residential neighborhood, since these are going into commercial areas, commercial and industrial areas. But that's a guess, because I wasn't part of that discussion. And I think it's just a recommendation to consider it, so.
I'm just going to personally say, I think any kind of these setbacks and recommendations for removal of any kind of like commercial space from residential space is bad land use. Really the only thing I stand behind is separating industrial from residential and commercial. Everything else I think is just arbitrary pro-sprawl thinking. So I'm personally against that recommendation from the Planning Commission, just on the principle of like, if we don't apply that standard to liquor stores, we don't apply that standard to regular pharmacies, it's absolutely silly. And
Yeah,
I think we should be encouraging more mixing of commercial and residential.
And I think you make a good point. Obviously, for industrial uses, you want to be concerned about traffic, or truck traffic or noise and things like that, but.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to make a motion regarding this. I just wanted to get information.
I think the other ones are pretty sensible. I don't know how you felt about the other ones. They seem to be in line with sensible site plan and other concerns.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately,
The others are sensible, in meaning which ones are you referring to?
so they have other amendments
Buffer, yeah.
that recommended for no loitering signs and things like that.
I mean, but that is also redundant because the state requires already that
Yes.
a lot. Yeah, basically a lot of what they put in they copied and pasted from the state's recommendation and requirements. So yeah, I agree with that.
And for as far as the buffer, I think it's a sad fact of a lot of the commercial development in the city is that there's already a large buffer because of the oversized parking lots.
My guess too is that, just based on my experience at planning board and planning commission meetings generally, these might have come out of public comment at the commission hearing. So, that might have been the origin of some of these suggestions.
So, we'll keep that in mind.
All
Okay,
right.
I'm ready to move
Before we move on to the amendments, I'm just going to go ahead and say again, everything is land use. All right. So, amendment, the planning, the rules and city government amendment. It is going to be on page 3, strike lines 42 and 43. If you look at the copy of the bill, page 3, lines 42 and 43, under the standards for use subject to standards section, the line that would be struck is, this is not permitted within 1,000 feet of the lot line of a public or private elementary, middle, or high school. This would essentially remove the no school buffer. The rationale was the rationale behind this amendment was that we don't apply this standard for regular pharmacies. This is a bill regarding medical cannabis, so it is going under a similar lens to a pharmacy under my interpretation. I also don't think we have a similar set of rules for if people want to view this as a recreational drug. We don't have the same set of rules for things like liquor stores. Is that correct?
Or cigar shop.
Or cigar shop.
Yes, I believe so.
So we would be applying it, again, this is a medical bill, but if you're looking at this as only people do this recreationally, we'd be applying a standard on something that is proven safer than both alcohol and tobacco. So that was the recommendation of the Rules and City Government Commission, or the Rules and City Government Committee. Alderman Kaye, did you have any thoughts, concerns on amendment?
No,
rules?
I fully supported it. Yeah.
Alderman Savage?
Ditto to both of you. I would move a favorable recommendation to Amendment 1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, that is the second. We are giving a favorable recommendation to the Rules and City Government Amendment, whatever number it may be, while we try to figure out the numbering in our system. Up next, we have Amendment 1.
We need to vote on that.
Oh, I thought it had already been voted on. I apologize. All right, so we have a first and a second. All those in favor of the Rules and City Government Amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Favorable recommendation. Excellent. So Amendment 1 and 2, the Alderman Gay amendments, these are essentially,
This is
you're just trying to get the will of the council. They are in opposition to each other. So if we support Amendment 1, we cannot support Amendment 2. If we support Amendment 2, we cannot support Amendment 1.
and that's in relations to the Alderwoman from Wards 3 amendment as well. Both all three of these amendments have to do with distance between dispensaries. I proposed a half a mile, a mile, and obviously she has the 1.5 miles. So,
And the bill as it currently stands has a distance of 2 miles. Is that correct?
yes, sir.
So all of these reduce the overall distance. It's just the will of the council. The Rules and City Government Committee supported Amendment 1 and gave an unfavorable recommendation to Amendment 2. Just for everybody's reference point, Alderman Gay, do you have a preference for which of these amendments? I believe you supported Amendment 1, correct?
Yeah.
Alderman Savage, do you have any questions on Amendment 1, 2, or 5? Because 5 is another distance thing. It's just
Well, 5 is
Oh, wait, no.
5 is number 1, the same thing basically.
yeah.
But I support Amendment 2. I think we should go down to 1 mile. I don't support the 1/2 mile because I think that would exclude, as we talked about, it would exclude 2 areas, one of which I know is most likely an opportunity area, growth opportunity area. The other one we'd have to confirm whether or not it is, but I think we want to include those growth opportunity areas in this legislation. So the second one would be 2 to 1 mile, and I think
What you refer to growth opportunity area?
growth opportunity. Would you want to explain growth opportunity areas?
Okay. I'm not as up on Annapolis's code to, I don't know what
Or-
ours specifically
Is it
says.
essentially an area of a community that they're trying to invest?
Yeah, my
Okay.
understanding is I think it comes from the state, and those areas, we have to register for the state, I think for programs to help expand them, but also it has to do with, because Annapolis is kind of an growth opportunity area in itself, but in this in particular allows us to focus our efforts on a couple areas. I don't know too much beyond that, but it's been in the comp plans before, and it's stuff that's in the comp plan gets prioritized right through the
Yeah, I mean, it's
planning process.
what it must do is prioritize in terms of hopefully streamlining development review and giving other incentives to make things happen in obvious corridors where development should take place, like you were saying, West Street. Just jumps out at you.
If I can ask a clarification point, Alderman Savage, wouldn't the half-mile distance incorporate more of those growth opportunity areas over the 1 mile difference?
Half?
Yeah, so,
Oh, I'm reading that as 1.5.
so
It should, I don't know why, yeah.
So it should be like half mile.
Yeah,
a half mile, correct. Amendment 1 would be half mile. Amendment
can-
2 would be 1 mile.
That clears things up.
Amendment
Okay.
5
I was like,
would be.
why is Dawn important? Yeah, I was confused too. I got you. Thank you, Chair.
So, okay, do we want any further discussion on Amendment 1, Amendment 2, and Amendment 5 from Alderwoman Pindell Charles?
No.
Okay. Do I have a favorable recommendation for Amendment 1?
Second, or so move, I'm sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. In Amendment 2, do I have an unfavorable recommendation on Amendment 2?
Second. I'm sorry, I keep saying it, so move.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of an unfavorable recommendation on Amendment 2?
Aye.
All right, and then since this is in regards to the distance between dispensaries, we're going to go ahead and skip down to Amendment 5 from Alderwoman Pindell Charles. What is the recommendation on Amendment 5?
I'd move unfavorable.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of an unfavorable recommendation on Amendment 5? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Going back to, I think Amendment 3 is in regards to the buffer zones between schools. And so by supporting the Rules and City Government Amendment,
Or 3 is residential lot lines.
a residential lot,
I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
page 3, line 42. I have too many tabs open.
Page 3, line 42. Okay, no, you're right.
Yep.
It was with the schools. Yeah. you're
Yep,
right.
so this is in regards to the schools. So because we supported the Rules and City Government Amendment, this would be in conflict with that. We can either give it an unfavorable recommendation or no recommendation. I'll take the committee's choice.
Because the rules of government
Yeah, the rules-
strikes it entirely.
Correct.
Yeah, I would be in favor of want an unfavorable recommendation.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of an unfavorable recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
It is a similar deal with amendment number 4, because we struck in the Rules and City Government Amendment, which we recommended favorably, we struck both lines 42 and 43. Line 43 does not need to have anything additionally struck. So do I have an unfavorable recommendation?
I second that.
You would first it.
Then I'll second.
All right, all those in favor of an unfavorable recommendation on Amendment 4?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Amendment 5, we've already voted on. Amendment 6, Alderman Savage. Could you get into this one, please?
Yeah, as soon as I find it. Okay, here it is. So the first one is redundant. I didn't realize that the rules of government, I was going to propose the same thing.
Yeah.
So no movement on 5. I'm going to withdraw that.
Okay.
Amendment 6 would be implementing a recommendation, I think from the staff report from planning and zoning, to just change the definition. So instead of listing everything out, we can just reference the state definition. I don't know if that's be considered friendly or not. I hadn't had a chance to ask you, Alderman Gay, but I think it prevents us from having to change it every time the state does.
Yeah, I would support that. Without question. I thought there was that law was opposed to that, but I'm assuming not. So yeah,
Of the law office.
we had a brief discussion, I think, in Rules and City Government as it relates to this, with the definitions that the state uses. I think actually your amendment would fix the concerns that we had.
Yeah, I mean, our concerns were just trying to narrow in specific language for us in separating the city from the state. This one just goes, we're going to follow exactly what the state does. I think that simplifies the process personally. So I would be supportive of this. That said, this is not my bill. Alderman Gay.
I'm fine. I'll support it. Absolutely.
So
I'll make a motion to I'll make a motion to move favorably Amendment 6.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, we're moving right along.
One more, I think.
And last but certainly
Tyranny
not
Amendment.
least is the Tyranny Amendments.
I haven't seen these yet.
So Ellie did call me and talk to me in regards to this. There's a very small group of residents that are concerned with marijuana being a gateway drug. Now, I don't know too many people who smoke weed and then go smoke heroin. I don't. But that is a concern. And so she's requested that we include this amendment to require the dispensaries have on site a vending machine that will provide Narcan. I'm not sure if we can force a business to do so, but I supported the amendment because I thought, I mean, it's harmless, really.
If you're cool with it, like I'm not willing to put a big fuss on this. I will say that the correlation between individuals who smoke marijuana and then overdose on heroin, there is a higher correlation of individuals who drink water and overdose on heroin. There is a higher correlation of individuals who breathe and overdose on heroin. They are not really related. If you're fine with it, I won't raise a fuss about it overall.
It was a friendly amendment, and I was just like, I don't see any problem with it. My only concern was, can we actually make a business do that? But I guess if it's,
I'm gonna think on this one while I call on Alderman Savage.
Well, I think I'd be inclined not to take an action because I don't think I'd personally support this just because I don't want to be spreading that association.
Yeah.
It's not based on science, right? There's no, you can't overdose on at least not in any, Narcan's not going to help if you take too much weed. So on that alone, and I think if we want to add just these dispensaries for Narcan, I think that's a good idea, but I think we should have a separate discussion about where would that make the most sense and be the most effective.
Yeah.
And that's a separate, because I don't know if it would be at these dispensaries, maybe it would be fire department or
street side. I mean, really.
Yeah, like that's, yeah, maybe. Post office, I don't know.
The more I'm thinking on it, the more I'm like, I don't like even giving that association of this is the gateway drug of disproven science. I don't like giving it credence at all. So we have a lackluster, I'm fine with it, and then we have a recommendation for no action at all. I'll leave it up to the committee which one we want to go forward with.
I say make no movement on this amendment.
All right, so that's a first. Do I have a second on no recommendation?
Second.
All those in favor of no recommendation? Aye.
Aye.
And then the next amendment is just a definition for the vending machines. I'm assuming if we gave no recommendation on the previous one, we're not going to give a recommendation on this. Is that a correct assumption? Can I get a motion?
I make a motion for no recommendation to the council.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Cool. So finally, 0622 as amended in front of the in front of the Economic Matters Committee. Do I have motion for a favorable recommendation?
So move.
Second?
Second. And can I comment on
Certainly.
that too? I think just to emphasize from the Economic Matters Committee that I do think the growth opportunity areas is an important thing to keep in mind. And maybe if we get some more information on that for the council meeting when this comes up, because that's where we want to see our economic growth, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, if we could just keep that in mind for the next
I
meeting.
was even, because of the, we talked about a little bit at the Rosen City government meetings with the discussions as it relates to growing, et cetera, and all that stuff. Not the growth sites, but actually the growth of the plant. I would really like to see us lease out a little bit of waterworks to a grower and allow them to have their facility there, because that's how you make money off of this. That's how the city can, enrich the taxpayers by using this unique business that is making billions of dollars across the country. And so I'm eager to have this pass and look at the possibilities of just development that we can have for our city.
I see no real issue with that. Truth be told, though, I'm not overly familiar with the growth side of the industry, so nothing really of value to add to the conversation. All right, so I have a first and a second. All those in favor of 0622 as amended? Aye?
Aye.
There we go. Cool. Mr. Laplace, thank you so much for your time on this one. We got
Thank you.
2 more that we may still need you for. Up next is 03022, Building and Construction, Fire Prevention Code, Sprinkler and Electrical Assistance Revolving Funds. This is an Alderman Tierney or a Mayor Buckley bill?
This is Tyranny, I believe.
All right.
Can I ask a question,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair? So just for the director, I guess, do you foresee any kind of economic impact from this legislation that we should be considering?
I have to be honest, I haven't evaluated it in that capacity, so I'd be hesitant to say.
Well,
It seems like it would support, because it's just about clarifying some of the sprinkler assistance fund and removing some language of provision we don't use, but I don't.
What I would personally believe is that anything that makes the sprinkler assistance fund more accessible to the businesses opens up some very unused, wasted space in our downtown historic section. A lot of those second and third floors, which in normal functioning cities with good land use, are great for serving things like business offices, apartments, and right now they're just kind of wasted as warehouse storage space because of the lack of sprinklers. So I think if we give some flexibility, make this a little easier for to use, we can untap the land potential of those downtown businesses and properties even more and keep our city's coffers a little bit fuller. So I like this bill. Alderman Gay, do you have any questions?
No, I supported. I was actually disappointed that the Alderwoman removed it during. I thought the perfect time would have been COVID, because that nobody really was in the restaurants. It would have been the best time for them to do any modification and site design and all that stuff that they needed to do. But I guess now is the right time. I'm curious as to the impact that it'll actually have on the businesses downtown. But I guess that is for the actual business owners to decide, when they would like to actually go forward with a project like this.
I believe that since we already mandated that they have to put the sprinklers in by a certain time, anything that boosts the flexibility and accessibility of the fund would be helpful to them.
Agreed.
So,
I'll make a motion to recommend favorably to the city council.
Second?
all right. All those in favor of a favorable recommendation? Aye. Excellent. And last but certainly not least, 03222.
Which I have to be completely honest, I have no idea really what this legislation, and I said that when we got it at the council meeting too.
Mr. Chair, do we need the Director of Planning and Zoning anymore?
I don't believe we need you anymore. Mr. LaPlace, thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
You going to the bike meeting?
I just found out about it, but I'm gonna try to attend. Yes.
Woohoo.
I have to go back and make some calls, but
See you there. All right, 03222. I'm a little bit confused by the language on this as well. Are we hiring an assistant city manager for arts promotion and not paying them? Is that the deal?
No, those are two
Okay.
different positions.
Okay.
One position is special programs, hold on here. We have gone through a series of employment agreement conversions over the years, and this particular one, this employment agreement is Brian Callahan's position, and the other positions in the mayor's office have been converted, and it's appropriate that it's time for his to join the rest of them. So the special projects arts administrator needs to go in the code this way because it's a member of the exempt service. And that's how we list them. The other position, the assistant city manager position, is in smaller print. The only thing that's changing there is the grade assignment that's already listed in the code.
It's going from the assistant city manager is going from an A14 to an A18 for the record.
Correct. Correct.
Do you have, before I call on my colleagues, do you have any further input?
To the rest of the bill?
Yes, ma'am.
Or ordinance, yes, I do.
Okay.
So we also have been through an audit and an appeal process with the Maryland State Retirement System. And we agreed to, in the settlement arrangement with the state, to put some language changes in our employment agreement section of the code. So that's what 310.020 is about. Sections B and C, we agreed to remove the language related to employment agreements. People are prohibited from being hired as employment agreement employees of the city in the same or similar positions. We agreed to remove or similar. The idea there being that we couldn't avoid having a position convert by virtue of putting them into a different job, or just retitling it or something like that, which was never our intent. But again, as part of the settlement, we agreed to clarify that. The other element in C that we agreed to do was to demonstrate that we always intended for if the position was 100% grant funded. So we clarified the language, put on 100%. And then in the course of reviewing the employment agreement provisions, we realized we needed to clarify our definition of temporary employee, because any employment agreement, again, that's not 100% grant funded, the idea is that eventually we're going to convert those positions into civil service or exempt service positions. Well, we have some individuals that are under employment agreements that work sporadically. The harbor master is a good example. And we have 2 positions that are assigned to planning and zoning that help do backup inspections. They're like supplemental staff. They work sporadically. Doesn't make any sense to convert those positions into full-time civil service or exempt service positions. So we just, in our definition of temporary employees, we had 106 consecutive days. And, people work not full-time consecutive days. They may work lesser amount of time throughout the year. And so that's the only reason we made that change. And that is the sum total of the purpose of this ordinance.
All right, saw Alderman Savage have his hand up first, and then Alderman Gay will call on you after. Alderman Savage?
Yeah, so is there any time sensitivity to this urgency? I mean, in light of the August break is one reason why I'm asking.
Yes,
There's-
yes. However, I've learned earlier today, that we're scheduled for Rules Committee on September the 7th. I did not know that. We had every belief that we were headed for final vote on Monday, the 25th. I do have concerns about timeliness and not getting this completed ahead of the break. Clearly, we put in the budget, we supported in the budget the conversion, employment agreement conversion to exempt service for the title that's in here. The incoming city manager does have plans to fill the assistant city manager job, and to do so, between David Jarrell and Mike Malinoff have been discussing about the real support out of that position, really serving at a higher level and handling significant duties related to the city manager's function.
I mean, I'm asking just because the only part that I want to have more conversation with is the assistant city manager change in the grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we can't really have that until the new city manager starts and we can get him here. And so
Understood.
if there's other time sense, but the rest of it I'm fine with. So
Mm-hmm.
if you need to get this passed, maybe we could always suspend the rules and just amend out that section, because I think that's what rules and city government wanted to talk about as well. for the
Yeah.
most part.
They
So that could be something we do tomorrow at our special meeting, and then Monday, if that's something you think there is time sensitivity on the rest of it.
What we could do to keep the time sensitivity while still opening up for the discussion, especially given that it's going in front of rules and city government. And to be honest, I think this is more of a rules and city government bill.
Yeah, that was my thought too.
We could just not recommend, or not give an unfavorable recommendation, but recommend no action.
There's
or,
no
yeah,
economic impact on the city, maybe the city government, but not the.
yeah. So we can like move it out of the committee, not bog it down, but we have some time.
The economic impact is the cost. A14, and I'm assuming that was my question. I'm assuming if you move up from 14 to 18, that is also a significant increase in salary.
Depending on the pay rate that the individual hired is paid. I mean, that's really the sum total of that. If the individual that's hired is paid within the range of the A14, which I have no idea. This is a recruitment that the the incoming city manager intends to do. He may have a candidate, he may not have a candidate. I'm not sure that there's been any level of discussion to that level. He's just trying to honor the request. I did the research, I did all of the background to support this recommendation. So all of that work has been appropriately done. There's a robust job description that goes with that. And both David Jarrell and Mike Malinoff have spoken consistently in this review process to get to this point. I can't speak for Mike Malinoff, who's not here fully, but I do know that he's greatly interested in having this accomplished soon, so that when he does take the, pardon me?
When is he scheduled to start?
August the 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the average pay rate of the A14 grade, and what's the average pay rate of the A18 grade?
So by average, if you're talking about maybe a step 6, $90,046 at 14, and at 18, 120, 252.
152.
120,
Okay, so that's a pretty significant jump.
120, 252.
I understand the time sensitivity of this. I don't want to hold it up in the committee overall personally. I'll call on you right after I finish this thought.
Yeah, of course.
We don't have a finance report attached, or what do we call
Should.
it? A fiscal impact. Oh, we do have a fiscal impact. I apologize.
In the finance committee.
All right, while I read this, Alderman Gay, I'm going to call on you then.
So we did hear it early in Finance Committee
Yeah.
today.
Today?
Two quick questions.
They postponed it.
Finance did what?
They postponed action until their next meeting.
And when was
It's
the
also in September.
when was the next rules meeting?
September.
Okay, so so you hold on, I'm confused then. You need this passed, but nobody's meeting on it until September?
Right.
So there are 3 committees that were recommended to review this legislation. I just learned this morning that Rules Committee is not scheduled until September the 7th.
Okay. And my second, or my questions as it relates to the bill, I would like to also get your opinion on maybe amending this to include because you mentioned at the beginning the mayor's office has been, or they are straightening out the employee titles and roles, etc. I'm wondering if the African American liaison and Hispanic liaison can, because I think right now they're like 8, 10, or 9 or something.
10.
10. How I would like to amend it to have them maybe moved up even just one grade at 11 or 12, or how would I go about doing that?
So that would not be your role to do. That would
The
be
council can't do that?
that the position would need to, I mean, I have responsibility as a human resources manager to take responsibility for the pay plan. So the proper way to do that is to have the position studied, to have the job description reviewed, and the job description's review and approval is between the human resources manager and the city manager as specified in the code. So those would be the appropriate steps to take, along with the input from the department or from the mayor's office as the department in this case.
But if we don't want it, I understand that that's the process, if we want to, and I'm not advocating for us to just blatantly throw the rules out the window, but I think what bothers me, and I've said this even during our finance meetings, we have top-heavy city government with, 3 city managers all making $100,000+ a year. I include Jackie in that because she is a deputy city manager. That's how it was pitched to us, at least. And our other employees are just struggling, and they need assistance. I'm always confused as to, again, I'm not, why does an assistant city manager need to be increased 4 steps? And this says right here is budgeted for $170,000 a year. That's significant.
So that budget would probably include benefits, is my guess.
Okay, yeah, because it says 140, the fiscal impact of the salary and benefits for the position is $170,000, of which 141 was included in the budget already.
So,
I'm fine with making no recommendation on this.
without the incoming city manager here to kind of answer some of our questions, I don't want to give a recommendation for it. I don't want to give a recommendation against it. Knowing that it's going to go in front of the finance committee in September, which meets on the same day as we do, just in the morning time, makes me think that if we keep this in for review at our next committee hearing, we're not the cause. When is their first meeting?
They're the 7th, and Bulls would be the 9th.
Okay, so that adds a bit of a, then we would be as a committee to gum it up.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I mean, could we just, I really don't think, to our colleague's point, I do think it has an impact on the city budget, and to point out that the fiscal impact note does not specify where the money's going to come from, but that's up to the finance committee. I feel like as far as economic impact to the city itself, not the government, but the city, I don't think there is any. So personally, I'd rather just take no action on it and send it to the other committees for them to deal with. Because,
yeah.
But if Mr. Chair, when I keep it, I'll be happy to.
I don't really. This doesn't really have any impact on the economic, which I see as what is the business climate of the city. So yeah, I say no action. Alderman Gay, do you have a?
I'm fine with that.
All right, can I get a motion for no action?
So moved.
And can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of taking no action on 03222? Aye.
Aye.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I will see you at the rules meeting. Nah, I totally understand. We're a very deliberative body here in the city. All right, folks, do I have anything else for the good of the order? Excellent. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mike? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.